Hi, I'm Mason. I make music and release it under the name Lone Thunder. I've just finished up my third album titled Proper Antidotes, and I'm extremely proud of it, so I'm going to talk briefly about my music making process and then take you through the track list. So basically, I do everything except for the mastering. I'll usually start out with either a small vocal idea that I voice memo in the car, or I'll come up with some acoustic guitar thing just doodling around, and that'll spark an idea that I turn into a full song, and then I will record a rough acoustic demo of that so that I can listen back and see if it translates the way that I think it does in my head. And if I like it, I'll add more instrumentation on top of that, electric guitars, bass, drums, some keyboard stuff, whatever I feel like it needs to get it to the point that it sounds like how I'm imagining it in my head. And then if I feel like it's something that is worth doing for real, I'll go back and redo the drums, and then I'll redo the bass, and then the guitars, and so on, paying very close attention to detail. And it can take a long time to get everything just right, but that's the part that I feel is most important personally, is just getting everything just right. And the whole time I'm doing this, I'm working on the mix every step of the way. So by the time I get to the end of the process, the mix is already really close to being done. So then I'll spend a little bit of time at the end just making sure everything sounds the way I want it to, polishing up the mixes, and getting them ready for mastering. So I'll send it off to someone else, and they will take it that last little bit of the way across the finish line. And then it's done. I've put so much of myself into these songs over the last 3 years, so let's talk about them. Loop was the first song written on this album. I loved where the last one left off with Pool, and really wanted to see what else might be down that road, so this was the result of that. It explores the idea of feeling trapped in your own head and not being able to stop yourself from overthinking too many things at once, which introduces the idea behind the whole album, which is each song is trying to find the proper antidote for some issue going on, either internal or external, and just trying to get through something. It explores a new array of sounds and a sense of space that really paved the way for the rest of the songs that came after it. Chemicals, like most of these songs, was written primarily on acoustic guitar. I wanted this project to feel more natural and grounded, so I intentionally left a lot more space for everything to breathe. It talks about feeling frozen and trying to find that thing to help snap you out of it. And that thing, the chemical, could be anything depending on the person. I think for me, it would be trying to find some happy memory to latch onto to help me start moving forward again. When the Light Dies has one of the more proper guitar riffs on the album. I remember playing that for the first time and having a total light bulb moment where the rest of the song wrote itself super quickly. And then later when I was recording everything, coming up with the rest of the guitar parts, that's one of the most fun memories I have of the whole process. It ended up being about the ever-changing world outside your front door and how that feels from the inside. So whether that's a mental door or a physical one, sometimes it feels easier to close the blinds, turn off the lights, and reassess on your own. React and Repeat was just this little thing I would mess around with for fun sometimes and never took too seriously. It was the first thing I'd written in a less conventional time signature, and the vocals were really different from anything I'd done before, but I realized that for an album where I was intentionally trying to go down new roads, this was the perfect example of that, and that it totally deserved a spot on the album. Again, it depicts a sort of mental prison, but with the constant mantra to just react and repeat. Make a decision and then move forward to the next one, and eventually you'll find your way out. Wasting Away took a long time to get right, And it wasn't until I decided to just let it go where it wanted and stop trying to force it in a certain direction that it all started to make sense. To do that, I would imagine multiple of me in the room jamming out the ideas like a band would. And that's what led to these longer instrumental sections across the album that I wouldn't have come up with in the past. And then I'd realized there wasn't a proper solo on the album, and this was the perfect opportunity to do that, so I'm so happy with how that turned out. So this beautiful instrumental backdrop with these lyrics depicting someone seeing the world headed toward this nightmare future every time they close their eyes was such a cool combo for me to play with. Poisonous Fruit came from an idea I had where I'd bought a Stanley Kubrick box set, and about an hour into each movie I'd pick up a guitar and see if the film would inspire me to play something that I maybe otherwise wouldn't have come up with. So for this one, I was watching Eyes Wide Shut, specifically when Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise are arguing in the bedroom. And just the way they communicate and the orange and blue color palette pulled these chords and lyrics out of me, and it was really cool to get to explore writing lyrics about how pointing fingers back and forth doesn't always lead anywhere good or productive. Long Way Uphill was one of the first ideas I had when I was trying to figure out what this album might be. I was on a balcony overlooking a lake, and I just remember playing that riff over and over again and being really excited to get back into songwriting mode. It's about how fragile the ladder to any given goal is, and a reminder to move forward with a strong will and good intentions. And it's also another example of me imagining multiple of myself in a room jamming an idea like a band would, so that's where the whole second half of the song came from. Just letting it go where it wants and take as much time as it needs. Open Eyes is another one that came out of that Stanley Kubrick experiment. This one was while watching A Clockwork Orange. I remember writing the main finger-picking idea during the movie theater scene, which is also where a lot of the lyrical ideas stemmed from, and I just feel like the way this song chugs along and builds in intensity is similar to how that movie feels. The lyrics on this one are about the realization of how many dreams are forgotten and die, and trying to find a way to not go down that same path. Change of Weather was originally not going to be on this album. It was in another folder of songs that just didn't quite make it, but I had an acoustic show coming up and I wanted to play something new, so I threw this one on there just for the hell of it, and it ended up being the highlight of the night. So I went home and reworked the recording, and I'm so glad I did, because this song encapsulates so much about how I felt at this point in the process of making this album, and it helped me recognize certain parts of my life that I wasn't giving enough attention, and helped me reprioritize a lot of stuff. So I really can't imagine the album without it now. Vertigo is the last song on the album and was also the last song written for the album. I'd really been shooting for 10 songs and I just couldn't find that 10th one, nor did I feel like I had a good closing track. So I went through some old voice memos in hopes that I'd find some unused idea that I might be able to develop into something, and stumbled across the main riff for what became this song. And I think the added context of needing it to be the closing track is what really helped get it to where it needed to be. And I'm so glad I spent the time doing that, because this is probably my favorite song I've put out so far. The way that I was able to express how anxiety feels to me in my head is something I'd wanted to do for so long, but just couldn't figure out the right way to do it. So the making of this song really did become the perfect, proper antidote for how I was feeling. At the end of the day, I make music because I enjoy it and I get a lot of personal value from it. But if anyone is able to find something in these songs that can help them or even just make them smile, that's an incredible feeling. So I truly hope you enjoy this album. Thanks.